I'm usually like the most responsive on text messages.
Yeah, you are.
And it just so happened that I was making myself breakfast and my hands were dirty.
Aren't you smart enough to realize that's why I was giving you static? Because you are the most responsive person and you didn't. And I was like, oh, forget him. You know what I mean? I'll just do it for him.
Yeah, I'll pick his numbers for him. And if he wins, I'll take his winnings or whatever. And they're having all this conversation. I'm like, guys, I was eating breakfast. Yes, I'm in 5 squares. Let's go.
Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
You know, Skizz, we usually spend about like an hour and a half before we hit record, just setting up, checking the cameras, and find ourselves just like talking about how our weeks went, things like that. And every time, by the time we sit down to actually record and have our topic of the day, I'm always thinking, you know what? If somebody was like just hanging out in the room during that entire time and just hearing us talk about the going-ons in our lives, like, I think they'd be interested in that. Like, it could actually be a decent podcast. So, well, here we are. We have no topic per se today, other than how was your week, man?
No, I like it. And that's so you're right, because we do that BS session before each one, and more often than not, like you just said, we're like, that was really funny. Like that would have been that's a good story. And so we realized, well, we're also trying to sort of catch up, right? Because we don't hang out that much.
We don't actually hang out unless we're like working per se, you know, like recording the podcast, streaming together, all that kind of stuff, or planning our streams, things like that. We never just like have time to just hang out and be you know, friends, you know, instead of just coworkers.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you. It's always everything. And it's been like this for many, many years. Yeah. Everything has some sort of intention behind it. So when we find ourselves at a time to where we can just finally relax and chill or whatever, then we're like, that's when we sort of abuse those moments, because we realize we don't hang out that much. So we might as well do our thing. I don't know. Last week, last week and a half has been.
You had a good one. That's why I thought it'd be fun to talk about. Because I mean, if we go back to the day you had to fly out to, where are we going? South Carolina. I always get the Carolinas confused. Sorry. You're going to go to South Carolina. Your daughter plays for a Division I softball team in the college she goes to, and they were going to travel for a tournament. So you were going to go see it. You and your wife were going to jump on a plane, fly across the country. You said you were at the airport at like 4 or something in the morning, 5 in the morning, something crazy.
It's funny because the story, it's interesting to think about what this all, like the story kind of goes back for over a year. And what I mean by that is it goes back several years. I've talked about my daughter's journey a lot in the past, and her getting to, make it onto a D1 softball is amazing. And last year was her freshman year, and it was a brutal one because she got injured during proving week. So she essentially played almost not at all throughout the season. You just you got to swallow pretty hard in those moments. It's hard, and we traveled a lot to go back and forth to watch her warm people up. And she got some play time, but it was very few and far between because she missed out on that proving week. Well, she worked really, really, really hard over the summer. She wanted to come back as like twice the athlete that she was, and she absolutely did. And so it was exciting, and she was having, just doing really well. And then leading up to South Carolina was their very first tournament. She just felt good. She felt like she had turned enough heads and that this was going to be so we were excited. And it was like, okay, we've not just been waiting all week to go do this trip. We've been waiting, not even all season. We've been waiting since last year, or arguably for the last 10 years. It's like, this is a big deal. And we get on the plane, and see, we had to get to the airport so that we were wheels up at 6 a.m., which means we boarded at 5:30, which means we had to probably get to the airport like latest 4:30, you know what I mean? And so, which means we probably left our house around like 4.
So you were up at like 3 in the morning, 3:30 to get ready to get out the door.
Right. And that's how that works.
That is brutal.
Yeah. And we had to, because there's going to be a game that day in South Carolina. So we're waking up and we're like, but it's kind of weird because my wife and I have been through this story so many times, the early mornings, the travels. I mean, sometimes let's get up at 3, be on the road at 3:30 to get to California. It's because there's a game at 8 in the morning or whatever, or 9 in the morning. Otherwise, we'd be driving like 100 miles an hour. So we get there and we're doing our thing, and we sit down in our seats in the plane, and we buckle up. And I I don't like flying. I'm fine. I don't have a fear of it. I don't like being on planes because
Yeah.
I'm tall.
You're
and
big
all
and
that.
planes
Yeah,
are small.
Sucks. And
planes
anyways,
aren't small, but the room they give per person is pretty tiny.
yes, planes were developed by Keebler elves. And anyway, so I don't fit. And so my knees are always jammed in the seat in front of me, but it's all worth it. All of it's worth it, and we get on there and the door shuts, and that's now I'm about to go into airplane mode. But just before I do, my phone goes bing and tournament canceled. I'm like, you must be joking. You've got to be joking. And my wife and I just look at each other and I realize because I've been trying to change a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? This is, I got to take some of my own advice. I don't have a time machine. There's nothing I can do to fix this. Nothing. I can't control the weather. I'm just not going to be upset about this.
This has nothing to do with your bad luck.
No, this
right?
is not.
We talked about that.
No, I mean,
false one.
If it does, it's pretty powerful bad luck because it also affected every other parent on the team,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, okay, obviously I'm sad. You have to let yourself feel. But both of us were just like, this sucks. But you know what? Let's make the most out of it. We have a VRBO. It's going to be me, my wife, and my in-laws, which, her mom and her dad, and I love them dearly. And we'll make the most out of it, And then I realized we're not going to even get to see our daughter because they never even left New York,
right?
So we just were like, okay, so now I'm just going to South Carolina. So we went to South Carolina. We get into our VRBO, and this is where the story gets pretty interesting and kind of sweet, honestly. The coach was able to find them a couple games in Jersey. So they end up traveling from New York to Jersey to play on the following day, which was going to be that Friday. Well, one of her roommates is also one of the pitchers. Now, this girl's got a heck of a story because she is very, very good. And they're the same grade. And this girl's from Jersey. And my daughter and her have just become really good friends. And it's crazy. I could just talk about my daughter all day. I get it. So I'll try to wrap this up. So my daughter is in a room with two girls on the team, and both these girls are really, really close friends. And my daughter sort of kind of turned it into a trio, if you will. So all three of them are really tight, and they're all on the team. And her friend, who is a pitcher, didn't pitch at all last year. And it was not because of talents, because she tore her ACL. So, I think my daughter had it rough. This girl had it really rough, do that whole journey. And she's a great pitcher too. Like an amazing pitcher. But I never got to see her. I'm only taking this, getting this from my daughter. Well, her parents are feeling the same way. You know what I mean? They didn't get to see her play at all last year. And so here we are. Well, her parents, this is crazy. They also came to South Carolina because there was a chance that their daughter was going to play. Mm-hmm. And instead, the game's in Jersey, 30 minutes from their house. You want to talk about bad luck. That's awful. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's awful. So we decided let's have her parents over and to the VRBO, and somebody was going to stream the game. So we all, we got pizza, we got all the goodies and everything, and try to make it a good time. And they played 2 games, and my daughter arguably had the greatest day of her career. Wow. No question, right? So it hurt to not be there in person, but I'll take that all day. Over so that she can have a day like she did. She was just, she was crushing.
You flew across the country to watch your daughter play softball on the internet.
Yes.
So you could have watched it at home.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I could have watched it at home and spent a whole lot less money.
So I remember you must have had a layover or something because you texted me and it was only like 9 a.m. and you told me the story via text messages, and I was like, man, that's brutal. But because I had the Super Bowl party coming up that you were going to miss, I was like, maybe we can make some silver lining out of this. Hey, Skizz, what are the chances you could come home early so you could actually make the Super Bowl party that I'm having at my house? And I'm like, maybe we could have some sort of silver lining out of this whole ordeal, right? Because we've been watching the Super Bowl together like every year, except for the one year that you were in Ireland,
right?
But like it's like our thing, yeah. And so I was like, man, we finally got our backyard done, pretty much. And I was excited to have my family over and some other people over to come watch the Super Bowl party, and you weren't going to be there.
I know.
And you're like always there. And so I was kind of sad about that. And then as soon as you said that you were going to South Carolina for nothing at this point, I was like, is there a chance you could come back early and actually catch the Super Bowl with me?
Right. And that was just funny. I was like, yeah, that's where our heads are at. Like it was when I brought it up to my wife. She's like, I'm already seeing if we can change our flights, because if there's going to be no reason for us to be here, and there wasn't. So other than, I'm not going to miss the games. And so we were able to watch those games, and they were great. And then we changed our flight so we can come back for the Super Bowl. And that it was cost like $160 or something. Nothing big.
I was
right?
going to
But-
ask you how much you got charged to change your
right,
flight, but
right. But it was worth it. It was worth it because we like being here and we like the football thing in general.
Mm-hmm.
But the Super Bowl, it just felt wrong to not be here to watch a Super Bowl with you and your wife. So that was that whole journey. That was what was that? 3-4 days of my life, and it felt like
yeah, you left Thursday. You got back. You got back like Sunday midday or something, right? Because you barely made it in time for the game.
That's right.
And you guys, I mean, you did your best, but you looked exhausted. To be
we were
honest.
wiped out. We were wiped because, well, we flew from South Carolina into Dallas, and then from Dallas into here, and that layover was actually brutal. Believe it or not, it was hard to explain why, but Dallas, that airport, it's basically like America's hub. It's massive, right? And if you want to get from one side to the other side, like the transit involved there is a pretty big deal. And we wanted to grab a bite from a certain restaurant that was like on the other side. It almost cost us our flight. Like we didn't think it was going to take that long. We ended up bringing the food onto the plane. We were those people. We felt bad, but we thought we had more time than we did. But anyways, we got back, and then not only did we have to sort of kind of clean up a little bit, but we had to do some shopping. We actually ended up doing some cooking because we were cooking for the week now, and we did all that. We did all that before we came over, and that's why we came over. We were both so loopy. But it was, I mean, no complaints. It was worth it.
Yeah.
We got to keep the tradition alive, man.
yeah, you guys made it. Silver lining, man. That's something we've always been kind of preaching in these podcasts too, is looking for silver lining in those down moments. I can't imagine how frustrated you were to not be flying for nothing. I mean, how much money was it spent on plane tickets, the VRBO, and all that travel for essentially nothing? You could have watched her from home, apparently.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, because they had to shift around so many things, that she's playing in North Carolina today. I'm obviously not in North Carolina right now.
Oh man,
we didn't plan for that, and so, but I do leave next weekend for Florida because she'll be playing in Florida. So we were trying to plan.
Florida's fun.
Yeah, it'll be fine. And I honestly, I'm not even joking when I say, I came out of that trip on cloud 9. I mean, that's how well she did. She was just, she was a rock star, and her self-esteem was as high as it gets and as it should be. And she just did so well, and she was just beaming. It was great. And got to watch on stream, of course, her roommate pitch for the first time. I've been dying to see her pitch because my daughter in her entire career is like, this is the fastest girl I've ever caught for. and it's not just all about speed. These, in softball, they've got the curveballs, they have sliders, they have the drop ball, the changeup, they have it all. They also have the fastball. And fastball at 43 feet is that people don't seem to understand how close that is. And so like an 80 mile per hour fastball, I don't think she throws that fast. That's equivalent to like 105 miles an hour in MLB, right? So just because of the distance. Well, I was so excited to watch this happen. And when she threw that first pitch, I was like, whoa, like that.
The noise it makes when it hits the glove was just like booming.
Yes. And my daughter was catching for her, and watching that moment was just, it was just magical.
That's awesome.
It was just magical. So I just like watched it over and over and over again. So
it's funny, man, because that day that you had broken the news to me that happened to you, I felt terrible for you, of course. And I had just gotten the news that my pool wasn't going to be done in time for the game. I told my guy, my contractor guy that was doing the backyard and doing the pool reef model and all that stuff, like, hey, like months ago, hey, can we be done by February 12th? I think that was the day of the game, right? And he's like, of course, contractors are just like, oh yeah, well, that's more than enough time.
I know.
We're good, dude. We're good. And so 2 weeks leading up to it, pool's still not done. And I'm like, yo, where's your guys? Like they need to put the, shoot the pool is what they call it. They put the Pebble Tech finish in and all that and make it, otherwise it's just it's a cement hole in the ground. It looks terrible and it's empty. Actually, it wasn't all the way empty. It was like partially filled with water from rain and like all the trash that all the workers just decided to throw in there. And like, I'm pretty sure mosquitoes were loving it. So, I wanted to get it done because I was having people over and it was like the one eyesore left, you know? And so he broke the news like, oh, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to make it out in time for this to be done. And I was like, well, that's disappointing, you know? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So apologetic. And then, so I was a little upset, you know, that, you know, woe is me. My pool's not going to be done. My backyard's not going to be 100% for this big party, this show off, this unveiling of my new place. And then you gave me that. And I was like, well, at least that didn't happen to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you start to do that comparison. My bad news is pretty much nothing compared to that. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be a sob story today because there's a much bigger one out there than mine.
Well, what's funny, so your response, because I texted it to you because, you know, you're my buddy, and it wasn't like the whole time I was like, oh, no big deal. It was like, I was upset. This hurts, you know, but when I said, you responded the perfect response. Like the text back was all capital letters and it was just, damn it. And I was like, thanks, man. Like, it sounds so crazy, but like that actually made me feel better.
You just needed somebody to feel the pain.
I did.
Yeah.
And almost also the message also was like, maybe I looked too much into it, but that response to me was you saying, hey, if you're pissed about this, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because this sucks. Yeah. That was
warranted, man. It was definitely warranted. It's just super bad timing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say bad luck, but we don't blame luck anymore.
Not doing it.
Yeah, we're trying not to blame luck anymore.
I don't blame bad luck. I acknowledge your good luck, but I don't blame bad luck.
But it was cool to hear like you could change flights and that you'd get to be, you know, come to the Super Bowl. So I actually like took days off from creating content because, you know, like preparing for a party is actually like a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like the backyard, you know, needed to be cleaned up. You know, it had been, you know, we had like re-landscaped since we got the studio built, and they completely tore my backyard up when they built the studio. And so I had no choice really but to like re-landscape the whole backyard. And then at the same time, our pool is pretty old, and so there was like a crack in it that we were really worried that crack in the pool was like leaking water into the earth, you know.
Yeah.
And that'd be really bad, right? So we're like, you know, let's just do it, you know, like let's just have everything redone, the backyard and do the pool at the same time. And so my family hadn't like seen it finished. Like even this studio that we're in, they hadn't seen it with the new Murphy bed couch thing that we're sitting on now, and all the decorations my wife has done, and then the backyard being finished. And so I wanted it to be perfect. Like I spent like half a day just cleaning my office to make sure it was like perfect. You know what I mean? That's why I wanted the TV moved. Last podcast we talked about the health thing. Yeah. That's why I wanted my TV moved. I wanted everything to be like where it's supposed to be, you know, and done. And so I spent probably 2.5 days just cleaning the backyard and little stuff like going to get propane tanks filled because I knew we were going to be watching the game on the patio, you know, and so I want to make sure like if people got cold, I can turn on space heaters and stuff. So I got propane tanks, replace the lighting in the patio so that when it did get dark, we could turn on those lights. But then when I put the lights in, they were super bright and like they were going to blind everybody. So then I got dimmer switches so I could bring the dim. So it was just like one thing after another, just in preparation for the party. And then of course, you know, the food, we wanted to test out the new grill. So we decided to make burgers. So I had to get all that ready. And my wife just, of course, she loves this. I think she loves hosting because it gives her a chance to cook. And it's one of her favorite things to do is to like feed people. And she does a good job at it. You know, she gets a lot of compliments on what she puts together. And she's into charcuterie. Am I saying that right? Charcuterie.
Something like that.
So she got a new charcuterie board. Such a weird word. For Christmas. My kids got it for her, which was a lovely present because it was perfect. And so she was building out a charcuterie board of like everything you can think of.
Yeah.
And then like my parents came and my mom brought a bunch of chips and dip, and McBean came over. He brought more chips and dip. I mean, we had so much food for that party that like by the time I was grilling burgers, I was like, why am I grilling burgers? No one's hungry. I'm pretty sure no one's hungry.
You know, and I had said to you, I was like, yeah, listen, we changed our flights. We're going to be there. You're like, awesome. And I texted, I'm like, tell me what I can bring. You're like, just you, man.
Yeah.
Just bring, and you
said
two
reasons why
maybe
I said,
some ice.
Yeah, there's the reason why. There's two reasons why I didn't want you to bring anything really. One, I knew you were going to be like hustling even just to make it, and adding the responsibility of you bringing some sort of food on top of that didn't feel right to me. And two, I knew we were going to have a crap ton of food already.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, no, we're good. But yeah, ice for drinks and stuff was the only thing we were like missing. So I was like, yeah, if you want to grab that, you know?
Yeah.
I figured that's just a gas station stop or whatever. No big deal.
No, it was great. And just for the record, your pool's done now and it looks amazing.
Yeah, they finished it 2 days after the Super Bowl party. And yeah, they did they did a good job on it.
It really did.
My wife's just got a vision. I told her the other day, I was like, you know, you think outside the box with your visions of like design to the point to where when you tell people what your plan is, they get that like, I don't know if that's gonna work, you know, kind of attitude all the time. I see it all the time. And in fact, I stop myself from like even trying to think or say anything when I'm like, I don't know, because I've seen it over and over again. She comes up with this kind of off the wall idea and it always turns out great. 100% of the time. Like she's 100%.
Yeah.
Like when we first did the inside of the main house, she wanted to do like cabinets 2 different colors, darker cabinets on the bottom, white cabinets on the top. And I was like, nobody does that. Like nobody has 2 different color cabinets. Like this is years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like everyone's doing it. You know what I mean? Like she was just ahead of the game. You know, like she just sees things. So with the backyard, we had some like stonework done, travertine put down, and we ended up going with like a lighter travertine, so it's like kind of white stone look around the pool instead of just like the cool decking, like it used to just be concrete that was like stamped in a way that it wouldn't get so hot. So we went white and thinking that wouldn't get as hot or whatever. And then she's like, we need to contrast that. And so I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, let's do a dark pool. I was like, a dark pool? No, I mean, a dark pool? Don't you want your water to be like crystal clear blue? You know, like that's the normal pool color. She's like, no, I think it'll be cool. Let's go dark with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you know, because I know she knows what she's doing. And so that's what we did. And they finished it last week. And I was like, she nailed it again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She nailed it again. The contrast of the dark pool with the white travertine. I was like, this is incredible.
I love it.
How did she do that?
I love it. I seriously love it. Like I remember because when she was talking about it, I like in that particular, I'm going to tell you when it came to the cabinets, I myself was like, that's going to look weird. It doesn't. It looks amazing. When it came to the pool, I was like, that's going to look cool. And it does look cool. You know what I mean? Because I actually like the dark tones. I really, really do just in general. So that you win. you win the backyard award. It's amazing.
Yeah. We got our own staycation. We just go in our backyard. She's out there. I don't know if you saw it. She put up her hammock yesterday.
I didn't see that.
There's a little spot for like a hammock, and we just got done streaming yesterday, and we'll keep going through.
Yeah,
our
there's
week.
lots of stuff to talk
We'll go
about.
through our week chronologically,
Yeah.
I think, as we go. But we got it done from streaming, and I went to go refill my water before I started setting up for the podcast, and she's just out there swinging on her hammock, watching something on her phone, earbuds in, and just I was loving it.
That's
I was
awesome.
Like that's it. Like that's the life right there. It's Friday afternoon, and we had gone out to lunch, and she was done with her work week. And she's just like, I'm gonna just chill on the hammock.
Yeah, I love it. I want to tell you about one thing else I did. I don't know if you saw my tweet on this. When I was in South Carolina, we took a nighttime haunted carriage tour. South Carolina, right?
I saw that.
Now, South Carolina's got it's got a tremendous amount of history, right? It was actually the first state to secede, which ended up leading to the Civil War, and so there's so much history and culture in that place. I've never been to the Carolinas, and I remember just being like, I could just walk this town for hours and just look at. I mean, it's all such cool stuff. So we were looking for things to do because we obviously had a lot more free time. So we ended up doing that carriage ride, and I'm like, so I tweeted out, I'm channeling my Phasmo brothers as I'm about to embark on this. I said, everybody's looking at me weird as I have this old school SLR camera and an EMF reader or whatever I said. I don't know.
Man.
Anyways, boy, I sure hope I'm right with my history about it being the first state to secede. If I'm wrong, then I'll chalk it up to being an idiot. So we went on this carriage ride, and it was the trippiest like ghost story carriage ride ever, because imagine a big beautiful Clydesdale horse dragging this carriage with these people. This horse was gorgeous, man. And the guy who's doing the thing, like not the host, or what do you want to call it? What am I thinking of? The guy doing the horse and talking to us. The guy in charge.
The guide.
The guide, right?
Yeah.
The guide. There you go.
That works.
This is a haunted tour in the middle of the night in South Carolina, being led by Fix It Felix from Wreck-It Ralph. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, you remember Fix It Felix?
Yeah.
Like, literally sounds like the guy, Jack, I can't remember the actor's name. If you can envision the actor that did that voice, right? He's on 30 Rock and stuff. I love this guy. I really, really do. This guy was, I'm saying, I love the actor. I also liked our guide too. The guide was like, the energy just did not fit a ghost tour. It was like the most like, what is the experience here? But it was so odd and so dynamic that it was enjoyable. You know, it was very, very, very neat. And he told all these great stories. And there was a woman that was the first serial killer in like U.S. history. Her name was like Lavinia something. I'm butchering a lot of this. I can't remember if that's her name or whatever. But the story he told was just haunting, on how her and her husband were, they had a hotel, and she would interview the guests. And if they were from out of town and seemed like they had some money or whatever, she would provide them some tea, complimentary tea, which would poison them and knock them out. And then one guy was so intrigued by the interview that he was like, didn't trust her. So he decided to sleep in the chair instead of the bed. He woke up to a big loud bang and woke up, and the bed was gone. There was a trapdoor underneath the bed. That's how they got him. They opened up this thing and they trapped him. And then the husband would beat him to death and so on and so
like
forth.
some Sweeney Todd stuff.
Yes, exactly. I was like, I even said, I'm like, I feel like Sweeney Todd. This is like, was inspired by this, or I have no idea what I'm dealing with here. But the whole thing sounded so unbelievably unreal. I mean, it was interesting and everything, but I ended up doing some of my own research, and it was just like, nuts. Not even close. Like, it was like, what?
Just made up.
It's like greatly exaggerated. She was part of some sort of gang of robbers, and some people, like, she was part of a gang of robbers, and then there's also some people speculate she never existed. But the amount of records and evidence that exists that any of that lore is accurate is next to none. So
you ruined it.
I know.
Why'd you even look it up?
Because
just let
I
it
had
go
to,
and
dude.
just accept it.
I had to, but
ignorance is bliss.
Well,
man. Come on.
I will say. Well, then we on the tour, we also, like, they talked about one guy whose corpse or whose coffin had been moved back and forth between these two grave sites, like over and over and over and over again for whatever reason. And so now people claim at night you can see a spirit crossing between these two graveyards. There was also one graveyard that, when so many people had perished from, I believe it was yellow fever, if I'm saying that right, there's this plot of land that is about the size of your backyard, and you have a good sized backyard, but can you imagine burying 5,000 people here? Like, that's how many, like,
Ugh.
It's creepy, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know how they did it. Like lower and then a little higher and a little higher, whatever, but they started to realize sometimes when they had to move because a big old storm came in and coffins were coming out of the ground. So they had to like move them. And there was a decent amount of fingernail scratch marks on the inside of the coffins.
What?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, good. We're burying people alive. Like, we apparently don't know what we're doing. So they used
Oh my gosh.
they used to put up like mirrors to their noses and stuff. And I don't remember but it was like a fog test. And if it fogged up, like, okay, they're breathing or whatever. I don't know. They didn't know what they were doing back then. So they were burying people. So they started doing a thing where they would put a hole in the coffin, and that hole, they would have a pipe go all the way up to the top to a bell. So if somebody woke up, they would pull the string and ring the bell. And that's where like the phrase "Saved by the Bell" came from. You're right. And boxing ended up adapting it.
What?
Right. And then there was a show called "Saved by the Bell," but that's like what it was. And they literally had a job where your job was to sit at the graveyard. This is where the graveyard shift came from. The nighttime shift called the graveyard shift, because you're just sitting there listening for bells. Can you imagine, homie? Can you imagine?
Dude.
I was like, can you imagine just sitting in that
freak
chair
out
in
if
that
the bell went
tower,
off.
just chilling, and then ding, ding, ding. You're like, no. And you got to go there and just grab a shovel. I'm coming, buddy. Like,
my God.
dude, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Wow.
That's what I mean. Like, that was just tip of the iceberg in regards to all the different culture that exists and the stories and the.
It's
just
cool
it was
that
interesting.
it's cool that you made the most out of that. Like,
Yeah.
you were basically there, kind of stuck there with, your plans had all just been destroyed
Yeah.
because you weren't going to softball games. And so you guys were like, well, we're here. Let's
make the
let's
best
go
of it.
see the place.
Yeah.
Like, let's not just fly all the way across the country to sit in our VRBO and you know, be upset. That's awesome. You went out and
We
checked
did.
it out. I was more happy that you made the Super Bowl.
Well, we were both, my wife and I were happy to come back because it's important to her too. She loves that tradition too, you know? And
yeah. It was fun. The Super Bowl, you know, it was Kansas City Chiefs, which I have a relative in the organization, and then the Philadelphia Eagles, who put together one heck of a team this year.
Yeah.
We won't talk too much about sports ball because I know not everybody is
Yeah.
into it. But we knew it was going to be I knew anyway. I felt like it was going to be a really good Super Bowl. Like the game wise, it was going to be
So
tight. Like I
good.
didn't think it was going to be one team dominating either way. Which
I was
has happened
worried
in the
it was.
past. It's kind of like. It felt like it, right? Like it felt like the Eagles were definitely a stacked team, but like I've seen Kansas City play enough that, you know, never count Mahomes out. And I got to say, like the coaching on that team, like the play designs that they do, like they are really, really smart with how they play football. So I felt like they had a chance, and of course I was rooting for them. I think I said it like on my streams or whatever. People ask, you know, we're big into football here in America, so people are asking, "Who are you going for? Who are you going for?" And I was like, "Well, my heart is for KC, but my head says Philadelphia because I really felt like on paper Philadelphia was the stronger team." But you know, we know now it's not a spoiler that KC did end up going through and getting the win. But it was close. It was close.
It was anybody's
Like
game.
it was anybody's game
the
like the
whole
entire time. Yeah,
It was
like
anybody's game.
Philadelphia
kind of
owned the first half. Kansas City came back with the second half. So they obviously, again, coaching made adjustments at halftime.
Yeah.
Poor Mahomes was like his ankle was just tore up. Who knows what they shot into his ankle to make him able to play the rest of the game, but.
Put a needle in.
But I mean, aside from that, like it's funny because like these Super Bowl parties, it's not like everybody that's here is just like glued to the television watching every play and like not talking and just into the game. Like there's a lot of talking that like goes on during the game and hanging out, and we like to do Super Bowl squares is what we do, and it's for people that don't know, it's hard to explain, but basically there's a grid of numbers. So like across the top 0 through 10, yeah, gotta have 0, right? Or 0 through 9, and then down the bottom, down the side 0 through 9, and then that fills out to like a full grid of like 100 different boxes, right?
100 different combinations.
Yeah, 100 different combinations, and in each box there's two numbers. There's one representing the ending score of one team, and then another number for the other team. So like you know,
The ending digit of whatever
the last digit of whatever the score could be. So like 3-7 could be like, okay, so if the ending score of a quarter was 13 to 17, that wins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like
as long as the third, it also lines up. KC has to have 3, and the Eagles have to have 7. It doesn't.
It's kind of hard to explain, but bottom line is each square has a 5%. No, 1% chance. Right, a 1% chance of hitting, and I bought 5 squares. You bought 5 squares. McBean bought 5 squares.
I bought you 5 squares without your consent, knowing you would pay me back.
Well, I responded.
After
I was eating. You guys were like talking about buying.
That's right. You're right. You're right.
I was so upset.
It was so funny.
So I'm sitting here trying to have breakfast. Actually, this all comes to McBean because McBean's like, "Hey, where's the football squares this year?
Yep.
Anybody doing squares? You know, because usually it's for charity. It's for
usually what it
fundraising
is.
event.
So usually we're at the ready because either my daughter's on a softball team that does it, or which she's not on those types of teams anymore, or my wife, who's a cheer coach, they're either doing it. They just so happen to not be. So here's the bottom line: we've done squares every year. It always comes from my direction, and I'm like, yeah, none of that exists anymore.
Yeah.
So I asked my wife. I'm like, you know anybody doing squares? And she pulled out a friend of ours. She's like, I think so and so is doing it for a charity. And so I hit her up, and there we go.
Yeah, it was for teachers, wasn't it? Raising money for
2 teachers who were going through chemotherapy. In the
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great cause, right?
Yeah.
And so typically the way it works is, you know, there's 100 squares available. You get a payout per each quarter of football. There's 4 quarters, and then some money is donated to whatever the cause is, right?
Usually it's 50%.
Usually
goes
it's
to the
50%, but for this one they decided to only take 25 or something like
yeah,
that, right?
I feel like it was just something kind of just thrown together last minute, and whatever, it's their rules.
Yeah,
and,
but I mean, for $20 a square, that's $2,000 for the whole board.
Yep.
That they're taking $500. There's $1,500 pot available. Divide that by 4 quarters of football because they decided to just do it evenly each quarter.
Yep.
Right? It was $375 you could win per quarter,
Per quarter.
if you're square hit.
If you're square
Right.
hit, which is also a change because typically what we've done is the first 3 quarters are X and like X amount, and the fourth quarter is like 4X. It's like
Right.
usually a big
Yeah.
beef, but it was split up.
They
just
just decided to
evenly.
just do it evenly across
Yeah.
the board. And so, yeah, I got 5 squares. You got 5 squares. Yeah, I was going to say when you found a thing, right? So you guys are going back and forth, you and McBean, about getting the football thing set up. I was in the middle of making myself some avocado toast, which is my favorite, by the
good.
way.
It is good.
So I was making myself the toast. My phone's blowing up with you two yapping back and forth about the squares. And then
I had to do it fast. I was about to go in airplane mode again. I was about to jump on a plane. I was in Dallas at the time, I believe. Or I don't remember. I was like, this has to happen fast. You know what I mean? I was like, I found somebody and this one would do it. Okay, are you guys in? And then he's like, I'm in. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, I'm just making impulses mine for him. I'm just going to get him 5. I know he's good for it.
This all happened within like 2 minutes.
I know.
That you guys had this back and forth. And I am usually like the most responsive on text messages.
you
on
are,
my
you
phones.
are.
And it just so happened that I was making myself breakfast and my hands were dirty.
Aren't you smart enough to realize that's why I was giving you static?
Yeah.
Because you are the most responsive person and you didn't. And I was like, oh, forget him. You know what I mean? I'll just do it for him.
Yeah, I'll pick his numbers for him, and if he wins, I'll take his winnings or whatever. And they're having all this conversation. I'm like, guys, I was eating breakfast. Yes, I'm in 5 squares. Let's go. I'll pay you when you get here.
Yeah. And you have to remember, you don't get to choose your squares. They're randomly generated.
Yeah, they're randomly generated. So, and then so this kid comes over, and I have this like chalkboard that is usually hanging on the wall, but we since took the wall down for the backyard remodel. So I got the chalkboard out there. I had saved this chalkboard off the wall because I knew it was gonna get used again because we use it every year. Got it out, cleaned off the numbers from the previous year.
Every year we have to do that, which I love.
Yeah, the numbers from the previous year were still on there, so I cleaned those off. It's kind of like a game day tradition.
Yep.
And then you came over and you start writing the numbers on the board. And I remember your back was like blocking the board, so I couldn't see whose numbers you were writing.
Right.
And then you were just like, McBean, check this out. And you wrote 77. And I was like, oh, McBean, that's a good number.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, dude, that's yours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Yes. Because that is like the best number.
7-7. That's
But-
like in football. That's 1 touchdown or
So
2 touchdowns and a
McBean-
field goal. It's a good
number. It doesn't
for
really
both
take-
teams.
The thing about this game is that plenty of times 7-7 is not going to pan out, and sometimes what you thought was terrible 2-1 ends up panning out. You know, like it's just the weirdest thing. And the reason I called because McBean and I like to razz you a lot in regards to the good luck thing, right? We like it's fun. You know, you have to just be at peace with it because we like to razz you. So I'm doing the squares, and then that's like you said. I'm like, McBean, you ready for this? 7-7. You're right. Oh, it's good. And I'm like, yeah, that's you, dude. And McBean's like, of course it is. And then later I'm like, oh, McBean, you ready? And it was still yours. I'm all 4-4. Like it's like the second best one you can have. And he's like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
And so we did them all, and I'll let you finish the story.
Oh man. Okay. So yeah, I had 7-7 and 4-4. So the first quarter, what happened? I got to remember this. The first quarter, did I hit 7-7?
Yes.
Because, okay, so each team scored a touchdown, but Kansas City towards the end of the first quarter was like coming down the field, and they were in range of kicking a field goal. And it was right before the end of the first quarter. And it was a fairly simple field goal.
It was
like,
just a little bit higher than a chip shot.
right.
Yeah.
And then he was going to kick it before the end of the quarter.
You got it. But do you remember, like, he's going to kick it. You're going to lose $375.
Yeah.
And I said, he's going to miss it. And I said, he's going to miss it. Like, I don't think he's going to. He's going to. I've been watching this kid for a quarter century. He's going to miss it. And go ahead.
You see, this is what your wife was talking about, though.
It's not about me,
You
dude.
were 100% convinced he was going to miss the kick because of my luck.
Well-
Because Impulse has luck.
Finish the story.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
He kicks it, right? It's starting to curve to the left a little bit. It can make it. No, it hits the pole and it goes outside.
Yeah.
He doinks it.
He doinks it. Yeah, it's called a doink,
hits the field goal post, and it does not go in. Therefore, the quarter ends 7-7, and I win $375.
Which is awesome. It's awesome. You seem to think I'm not happy that you won. It was awesome. I just wasn't like, oh my gosh. I was
The funny
like,
thing was, Skizz wasn't even watching the kick. You were talking to my dad.
that was the second.
Oh, that was the second one.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah, that's
gosh.
right, people.
I don't remember how you're gonna have to remind me of the second one.
I don't remember how it played out,
but I know. So the first one I hit the 7-7. Second quarter, Eagles started to dominate. Right. So first quarter ended in a tie, but then second quarter, Eagles started to dominate, and I think KC got one more touchdown, but the Eagles got a touchdown and a field goal.
I think here's the deal. I think the doink, I think it was actually on the second square that you won.
Was it?
Yes, I really think so. I could be wrong here because you're
honestly was not drinking that much to forget this already. It's
none of that matters.
We watched so many football games.
I don't know. Dude, you understand? Like here's the deal. Okay. It's not like I wasn't happy that
maybe
you
that
won.
was at the end of the half.
I'm pretty sure it was that one because the first one I remember
it was just straight up like
it was just straight up the time ran, and the second, I mean, there was a possibility they could have made something. Oh, keep this in mind, okay? The first quarter finished 7-7. I turned around, I looked at you, I pointed like that. You got it. You know, it's great. You got it. Very first play of the next quarter was a score. Next play.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
so we got our quarters mixed up. The doink was at the end of the second.
Doink was at the end. Yeah.
You're pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first one was funny because it was like the Eagles were trying to score again, I think, and then like they missed a long bomb at the end of the first quarter, and it could have been like, oh, I could have lost that 375.
Yeah.
But then the next play of the first play of the second quarter, they actually hit it for the touchdown.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, 10 seconds. That's all the difference in the world was.
Yeah. And here's what's awesome, right? So here's the deal. I'm not just get off the luck thing. I'm happy that you won. Just get off it. It's like
I'm not the one that's on it. You were the one.
No, that's not true. You're the one who keeps bringing it up. Like you're not supposed to be talking about luck. I'm like, I'm not talking about bad luck. I feel like a very, very, very fortunate person. I really do. There's just no arguing that you have good luck. You just can't argue. This is a numbers game at this point, to the point to where McBean and I are cracking up about it, all the way to the point to where as we said, when we used to do these in years past, the person who ran it for my daughter's teams back in the day was the same person who was running it for this business of hers, right? And after you won the second one, she lit me up. She's like, I recognize this name. This is the same guy I've been paying after all these years. I'm like, yep. She's like, he wins every year. And I was like, every year.
I have their name in my PayPal account because they've PayPal'd me the money before. And I remember I saw like, you go to PayPal and it's like, here's your contact list. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the people that pay me every year for the fantasy squares or the football squares. Yeah,
she had some choice words for you. It's great. Yeah. But it was great, man. It really was, and I was so happy to be there. And I knew when I made out those grids, I was like, it's anybody's game. You know what I mean? But I don't think I'm
7-7 and 4-4 were great pulls.
They're great.
Though,
I think one of my grids.
Yeah, in case it wasn't clear, I won both the first and the second quarter, so that ended up being. How much money?
You did win first and second quarter. Yeah, that's right away. Yeah. So $750.
$750 minus the 100 I put in, so $650.
So $650. Yeah.
Yeah. My I was telling my chat about it the other day, and they're like, now you can buy another camera for your next guests to bring a guest onto the podcast. I was like, yeah, that's about right.
I think one of my grids had like a frowny face and a middle finger. If I missed this, so it was not going to happen. But it was still fun. It was. I mean, obviously, it was still fun. Always fun hanging out.
Yep. Yeah, it was a great time, great food, and yeah, you guys, as soon as the game was over, you guys were spent.
So tired.
You guys took off, and that was totally fine. My parents ended up staying. I got a chance to just sit around, catch up with my parents. My sister and brother-in-law and niece had to leave because they had to make it across the valley, before it got too late, so they had left early. But my parents stayed. We stayed up till like 11:30 at night, just catching up.
That's
and
awesome.
talking
I
and sitting on the patio till it got too cold. But I had my space heaters thanks to the propane I'd got. Mm-hmm. And then they got a chance to. This is our guest house. It's the studio / guest house. So we got this Murphy bed couch thing, and we pulled the bed down. And
this right here. You pulled this.
Yeah, this whole thing just pulls down.
That's the handle.
Yeah, the actual mattress is in the wall, and this whole thing pulls down. And they slept in the guest house. They made themselves coffee in the morning. They, my dad watched TV and just had their normal morning routine. And then when they were up and ready, they left, and it was great. Like turned out great. I was a little nervous that they weren't going to be comfortable, but apparently it was just fine.
Yeah.
I remember we went to bed kind of, like I said, late, 11:30, and then I woke up early. I have that happen. I think you do too.
A lot.
Yeah, you just told me you had that happen today, actually. But I woke up like super early, maybe 4 a.m. or something, and just stressing straight away. Just like stressing. You start going through all the things. Like for me, it was like I had taken all those days off to set up for the party, you know? And then of course now I knew that, you know, there's also got a post-party cleanup that needed to happen. But then I knew there was like a whole bunch of other things that I meant to get done that I didn't because I was doing the other stuff. I was like, oh, I'm behind on this. I'm behind on that. Okay, today I need to, oh my gosh, I never did this. You know, and some of the stuff was kind of important. Like signing up for Cobra coverage, you know, my medical benefits from when I left my last job, and I needed to actually sign something saying that I was going to go into the Cobra coverage, which was a health insurance thing. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's due. If I don't sign that, I'm going to have we're not going to have any health. I should probably do that. And so then I started make a list of all the things that I was behind on. And I woke up after hardly any sleep and I was like, I don't think I can stream today. Like I called off my stream, which I hate doing because I have pride in the fact that I set a schedule and people can expect me to be there at a certain time. You know, it's kind of like if you're into like a TV show, you know, on TV, a network show that's like every Wednesday night at 8 Central, your show's going to come on and you get excited about it. And then if your show's interrupted by a political debate or breaking news or whatever,
you're like, what are
and
you
you're
doing?
just like, come on, where's my show? You know? I kind of feel like I'm letting people down when I don't show up for stream. But I knew that day I was like, one, totally sleep deprived, and two, stressed about like all the things I needed to get done. So I spent Monday just like catching up. And you know what? At the end of the day, I missed my stream, but like just checking all those boxes off, that checklist that I had felt so good.
Yeah.
Like it just, then I was ready, you know, like I was ready for the rest of the week after that. And we rocked it this last week, man. Like, dude, we started a new season of Naked and Scared.
We did. That's
Can you believe that?
That's when did we record on Tuesday?
Tuesday. Yeah. So part of my Monday actually was,
Remind
you
me,
know,
yeah.
like
I got to talk to you after this podcast about this coming Tuesday. Just I want to put it out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We always do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit me up on Monday and you're like, hey, do you think we can get started on Naked and Scared like tomorrow? And I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's a lot of stuff to do, man. Like I got to get the world together and we got to still come up with what the challenge is going to be. And what else? Oh, then once the challenge was figured out, like you were on it. You're like, dude, I got an idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the producer.
Yeah.
Right? We always say the producers come up with a randomly
producers.
selected.
All right. The producer.
Let's come clean.
Don't tell people they're gonna.
There's no randomly selected task. It's just us coming up with stuff.
Well, wait. You know why that's called a randomly? Okay, if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about right now, Naked and Scared.
Go watch it on YouTube.
It's a series that we do through Minecraft, and we're season 26.
We've been doing this for like probably 8 years.
It's basically like one of our very first things that was kind of a good. Now in the beginning, we did come up with a bunch of tasks, and it was random which one we were going to get. So it was random. And then we just sort of leaned into, as the producers came up with this task, even though it was us.
Yeah.
Maybe one day somebody else will come up with it.
I remember though, like there was always stuff in the dispenser or whatever that I'm like, please don't be that one. And then I realized, like, if we don't want that task, like, why are we forcing ourselves to keep it random? And eventually we just said, forget it. We'll just pretend it's still random, but it's not. Yeah. There's producers that decide, but we're the producers. But yeah, you came up with a cool idea, leveraging one of the new features in Minecraft of heads being on note blocks, make the mob sound. And then we quickly realized, like, oh, this is dependent on thunderstorms randomly happening in the world, and we realized that like that's going to be a showstopper basically.
Yes, we can't wait
like
4 episodes for it to have a thunderstorm.
We have a 21-day time limit, and we can't just be standing there waiting for rain to happen. So we came up with the idea of like, what if there's a mechanism that could trigger rain? And then we're like, okay, we're gonna have to command block this. And then you started messing around with some command block stuff, kind of figured it out. And then I was like, okay, wait, what if, because you had it like, oh, there's a place we go to like press a button or whatever, and that activates the thunder. And I'm like, well, that's going to kind of bog us down into staying in one place. What if we can do it from anywhere? And then I realized, well, what if I made a command block that recognized when we eat something special, it triggers the thunder. And so I was like, what don't we usually eat? And I was like, beetroot soup. Nobody eats that. Yeah. And
it was brilliant.
So then
I love it.
Yeah, then I figured it out. You know, I spent some time in Minecraft, like with command blocks and stuff, figuring out how to like make a command block look for a player eating beetroot soup so that it could turn on thunder. And then I was all happy with myself. And you're like, what about turning it off? And I'm like, Oh yeah, we're not allowed to sleep because
Yeah.
like I just assumed like I was like, there's no point in like needing to turn it off. You just sleep in a bed. But
Yeah.
we have a rule.
Yep.
No sleeping in bed.
sleeping.
It's like, oh dang, good point, Skizz. All right. When you eat, what did I even decide on?
On dried kelp.
Yeah. Nobody eats dried kelp. When you eat dried kelp, it turns the thunder off. And so I got another command block to look for that and figured it all out. Put it in the spawn chunks, make sure it worked anywhere. And I got the world together. And at the end of the day on Monday, I was like, we're gonna start tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. I was like, I pulled that off. Like
Yep.
if I had streamed that day, I wouldn't have been able to do all that, you know? So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's again, look at the silver lining. I missed my stream, feel terrible. But because of that, I was able to get a whole bunch of stuff done and then set myself up for success the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday came in and we recorded and man, it was good.
It was so much fun.
Man, it was good. The episodes are being worked on right now by our editor, the Puka, who does an amazing job always. But that we did you post to the replay to your second channel? So people can actually just go see the raw recordings.
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird that we do that because like people can go see it now unedited. But I kind of like that behind the scenes stuff anyway.
I do too. We've talked about this in the past, and we just kind of played the numbers game. That it was like the percentage of people, at least on my channel, that watch it compared to what the end state views are of the polished product it's like 1 to 20 or something. It's like ridiculous, right? And so I was like, no, it's fine. I'm fine with it. And you're right; it gives kind of a behind the scenes, and it's all raw and everything. But then the polished version. The Puka.
It's always worth watching because he adds his flair to it, and you get that like back and forth. So we give him both of our recordings, so he can like if something cool is happening on your end, obviously your views being shown, and then he kind of switches back and forth. So he does a good job of like showing the best parts of the whole thing. But at the end of the day, it's still just a 20-minute like we hit go. And it's 20 minutes and there's no cuts. It's uncut. So whatever happens, and it happens live. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like whatever happens.
Like it's all live. There's a lot of people watching. And it's funny, here we are, season 26, and I hope there's 26 more. Like there's something that the charm of this show. I just like it so much. Get in the boat, Skizz! Get in the boat! Dude, what are you doing? Why'd you break your boat? Get in the boat! So this is a forecast that's a foreshadowing rather. Let's not that audio clip is just too funny.
It's so funny because like it's not often that I forget that I'm like recording, being a YouTuber, streamer, and there's people watching. But like that was a moment where I was just legitimately like playing Minecraft upset.
You were mad. You don't understand. I was right clicking on the boat. It wouldn't go. I swear, dude. I know how to get in a boat. And I'm like, I'm trying. And then I was like, then here's what happened. I'm right click. I'm like, it's not going to go in. I'm like, maybe my brain wires got crossed again. Maybe it's left click. Oh, I just broke the boat. And you're like, you broke it.
Oh, I hope our compression's working on these microphones.
It always is.
It was such a fun moment. Yeah. Like that moment alone. And then, yeah, honestly, you know, that stuff happens. And I think there was a bit of, you don't get embarrassed easily, but I did kind of feel like there might've been something there. But at the end of the day, you're like, you know what? That's actually going to be good content wise because it gives that like drama, you know.
It does. And it's very real and genuine.
Yeah.
Because you have to remember, if I die, season's over.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal. That's where your genuine frustration was coming from, because you're like, dude, you're about to end our series, you know? And I'm like, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to get in the stupid boat. I was just, it's making me crazy. And then you boated by. I tried to pop in, and that's what's funny. You're like, I'm coming by, come by, and you're all in the boat. Like it was like all of a sudden you were like super in the boat, and then you're like, get in the boat. It's so funny. Whatever, dude. It was. It's such a fun series. I can't get enough of it. And in any time now, we had to wrap up last week, 2 weeks or a week and a half ago, whatever. A series
Skyblock
Skyblock had to come to an end, and we made that decision before we started the stream. We knew we were going to end it. Neither one of us knew how we were going to end it.
Yeah.
We just knew it had to end, and so you decided along the way somehow you're going to just go postal.
I did. Yeah. I mean, I was having a rough day.
You were having a rough day anyway.
You know, it's tough. And maybe this is a whole nother podcast topic for down the road, but sometimes it's tough to hide what's actually happening in your brain and in your real life.
Of course.
When you're streaming and making content and stuff and you're in front of people. It takes a little bit of acting. Unfortunately, not everything is totally authentic. You know, you kind of have to like shove some of that stuff down. And it just turns out that day I didn't shove it down far enough. You know, like it started to surface a little bit during the stream. Like a lot of little things just kept poking me.
It surfaced before any of that. And I can tell you the proof of that is without me saying anything. So my wife and I watch a lot of this stuff together, and we started watching that, and we were only a handful of minutes in, and she goes, "So he's in a bad mood." And I said, "You have no idea." And I said, "And you have no idea what's coming too." But I was like, dude, he were in a bad mood before we.
Yeah, it was. I had a pretty rough day that day. I'd lost a full blown recording.
Yeah, that's hard.
You know, like technology sometimes, even as good as I am with technology, sometimes it still gets the best.
You're going to lose sometimes.
And I had lost a pretty significant thing that day that I had recorded that I was proud of. And then there's just a lot of stress leading up to it, and just other stuff. You know, there's always life as well that happens outside. It's just a lot of little things that just kind of piled up, and then it was time to go, and you know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't put it all under the surface far enough, and then we started, and yeah, I was hurting. I think I even started with like a headache, if I remember right. I think I might have actually told you before we started, like I have a massive headache. Anyway,
I don't remember.
I told you about the footage. Maybe I didn't tell you about the headache. I definitely had a headache, and then stuff happened during the stream.
That was not even me. It was like I'm always poking and razzing you because it's
kind of the shtick.
I earned that privilege, but there was something else that had nothing to do with me. That did not good things for you, and it was like your brain's like, I just give in, and then you went and you killed Glue Stick, which was my treasured horse or whatever. And I have to have a reaction to it. The whole season has been me saying like, you know, don't touch him. So I have to have a reaction. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, looking back, I'm like, no, it's too much. My reaction was too much. So I wish I could go back and dial it back, but I can't. It was too much.
No, but you were right. You had to do something, but also again, in a way, you saying like, don't do this, felt like content too. Yeah. Right. Like if you said all season, don't touch him, and then we end the season and he didn't get touched, then there's no story there.
Right. It's 100%. So it was like that. It was almost like I was giving Glue Stick plot armor, right? And you took it away. I'm like, I have to have a very real reaction to this. And truth be told, it wasn't like I wasn't genuinely a little bit mad. I was genuinely a little bit mad, little bit, capital L little bit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I was like, whatever, it's a show. Let's have some fun here. And so I was a little over the top, but we went with it. And then you went super crazy and brought the Wither and destroyed the world. It was a great.
It was one of those moments where I was like, all right, I snapped, I lost it. How do we go from here? Because as you were like displaying your level of displeasure with me, it did start to feel a little bit awkward for me, and I was like, okay, we have to move on from this somehow. What can I do? And so I was just trying to like go with some kind of improv, let's play off of this. Let me go get the Wither and destroy the whole island, then Glue Stick, what doesn't matter because everything's gone, It's like,
it was a good idea. And what's funny is when you watch it back, I actually watched your POV back, like the raw from the stream, and you were on autopilot. Like you were literally fetching a Wither to come destroy our world, and you're calm as can be. You're like, and I'm like doing something, and you're like, I don't know, I'm just nothing. Like you were like,
giving you no indication that I was bringing a live Wither boss from another part of the world to our island.
It was amazing, and I heard the boom. I thought you were doing TNT, and you're like, and I'm like, you made a Wither? You're like, nope, I brought him home. It was so funny, dude, and it was great. So I kind of almost like a lot of people, I think, had the impression that we had some genuine contention with one another because of the whole Glue Stick thing. And it was like, recording's over. It's fine. It's a cartoon horse. You know what I mean? It's a cartoon horse, but they don't see what we see, to the point to where, like I said, I watched this, with my wife. And when you killed Glue Stick, she was stirred up. She's like, I do not like him right now. Like it was real. She's like, I don't like him. And I was like, hey, babe, it's a cartoon horse. She's like, doesn't matter. That's messed up. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's a cartoon horse. It's a cartoon horse. It's fine.
Yeah. And for me, it was a couple things. One, I had a bad day and I took out my frustration on your fake pet. And two, like
had to throw fake in there.
Oh, yeah. And too, like, nobody likes being a villain. You know what I mean? And I knew that was how that was going to be perceived. You know, like I killed your pet. And so I was like, okay, this isn't going to feel good. You know, and maybe I went over the top. Maybe you went over the top with the reaction. And it's not going to feel good for anyone really. They're going to be, you know, upset with the whole thing. How can we? So then I was like, okay, can we now address this in a way that we're not going to just continue to make more people upset about the whole thing? And so we were coming up with ideas for the editing process for Puka, and just like, okay, let's visually show Impulse losing his cool. And so he did it. He nailed it. He had an animation where every little thing that happened to me that day that like prodded me a little bit, he like bring up the animation to kind of like show me getting more and more like upset, you know, to the point to where I snapped. And so now it takes out that like, oh, he's just a bad guy doing bad things, to like, oh, I see why he was pushed over the top or whatever, and he did snap, and it happens. Like that's how real life happens with me too. Sometimes I bottle and then next thing you know, I didn't let the little pressure out and I explode, you know. And that me killing glue stick might have been an exploding moment.
It was you knocking the cup of water out of my hands back in the day.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, but again, as soon as it happened, I was like, as soon as it happened, the moment it happened, I thought it would be okay. But then when you reacted, I knew it wasn't okay, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do now. You know, like,
yeah, that's what I mean by so that's what I mean when I say I was displeased with my own reaction, because it was an overreaction, and being able to take moments like that and change them on the fly is my thing. That's my number one strength, and I wasn't delivering. And so now you were like, he's not doing it. What are we supposed to do? Like, that's, you know what I mean? So this is interesting. This podcast took a turn right here. They get to see a little bit behind it. Everybody has to understand that when we're streaming, and especially when we're streaming and recording, 99% of what you're seeing is just genuine. It's just, but what 99% isn't, it's not 100. So there's going to be those times it's like, okay, now we have to make cognitive, creative decisions to mitigate whatever is in front of us here. Sometimes you have to do it, and you got to do it on the fly. You have seconds. Yeah. You have seconds, and sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it is the nature of improv, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Like not all, you know, what was that one show that used to be on where it was all just improv? You remember?
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah. And there were times when they would just fail.
Yeah, of course.
and that was like, as that was happening, I was like, oh, I feel like this is kind of failing a little bit. Like I was feeling awkward, and I'm like, if I feel awkward in this moment, then the audience feels awkward. All right, we gotta somehow move on. So anyway, it was an interesting day. You know, again, it's like, I think that's one thing to just be aware of. Like, we are at the end of the day people harboring feelings and emotions whilst trying to create content, and sometimes they bubble up a little bit, as professional as we try to be. And it hit me that day, and I realized I might need something, you know, I might like something's wrong. I'm like harboring some negative energy. So,
but those moments, dude, is like, this is what the Resilience podcast was all about. Right. And let's pretend, here's the deal. I'm worried about it. So you and I work a lot together. A lot in this world, right? We do the Skyblock thing together. We do Naked and Scared together. And which I just want to say, the ending of Skyblock, that whole thing, like, was your idea. The idea of you seething, you know, throughout, and then it coming to a head. The end with me riding glue stick into the distance, you getting chased by the weather. This whole thing was your vision. And I was like, I wasn't reluctant about the vision. I was reluctant about putting that on Pooks, right? Because, like, you know, you were like, what do you think about this? I'm like, that's a lot to ask, you know, but that's obviously a pretty good idea. And Pooks, and there's nobody better, and he just absolutely delivered. But it was your vision, and it was on point, and it was good.
Yeah.
It was a charming ending.
Yeah,
you know?
Thanks. I in a way, I did feel like you might have seen that as me trying to cover up my tracks. You know what I mean?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. I saw it for what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah. Because I knew I had done something not great, and that the only way to, like, quote unquote, there is no way of fixing it. It's happened. But the only way to, like, soften the blow is if we could do something creative, like what was come up with, and then give you, you know, you had said, I wanted to ride glue stick off into the sunset, you know, and that's when I realized, you know, okay, me killing him actually wasn't beneficial for the series, you know, because I had felt like
it's not like I shared that with you.
right.
Yeah.
But you said it in that moment, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I took something away from him, even more than his fake pet.
You're such a jerk. He's a cute horse.
So I was like, man, if Puka could animate you riding off in the sunset, it gives that like he got to do it anyway. You know what I mean? Like even though all that happened, it's pretend land. You know,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can still just this is like the dream world. You get it, and then like as he's riding off in the sunset, it's that romantic thing. I'm chasing behind you with a wither trying to kill me to kind of like just give back to that moment where I brought the wither in. And it was like, okay, so all the people that just got upset about what just happened and felt uneasy, like can just be like, oh, it's fine.
It's 100% fine. And what's interesting is when you had sent me that, when you texted me that idea, I was as over it as you can think. That's just, but I'm weird like that. Like I'm just over stuff, like super fast.
Yeah, I
right?
wasn't. I was still feeling really guilty about the whole thing.
So when you said, what if we have Pooks do this? I almost responded by saying, wow, this is still bothering you.
Yeah.
You know
and
what I mean?
It was because I knew I screwed up.
Yeah. But instead I'm like, that's a lot to ask. It's a good idea. It's a lot to ask. But boy, Puka, it's just so amazing. He just did such a great job. And it was a charming ending. And then we got to deliver the good news that Naked and Scared season 26 is coming. So I was happy. But my point where I was going with this is like, you and I work a lot together, right? And we've had our disagreements. Very few and far between are they, and typically they're really benign. We haven't had that moment yet. I don't know how. We haven't had that moment where it's like
friendship ending.
Yes, like real stuff. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to explain it, but I've had to work with people in the past where it's come to a point to where I've had to say that don't. If you talk to me like that again, we're gonna have a huge problem. You know what I mean? Like there's been times. And you and I have like not, but it's coming. It has to be coming. And so when it happens and one of us is just like had it or whatever, I need to know that we can like say, okay, well, when we pull our big boy pants up and deal with this and talk about whatever this is. And I was like, it's just not happening. It's just not, it has to happen. Because I need to know that we can get to I already know we can, but it's almost like I just need us to experience it. We've had times where it's just like, yo, something up, you know what I mean? We have like a little teeny tiny bit of contention, very, very little, but.
I mean, and the other thing is because we are so different, you know, we are the yin yang type thing going on that sometimes creative differences, but like we always just find a way to like kind of meet in the middle or how we have our back and forth. We each have our points to make about why we have the vision we have. And then we usually either just say, no, you're right, yours is better, or we find a middle ground or whatever. We always seem to work things out anyway. And I think, that's a tribute to, the strength of our friendship as well.
Yeah.
And we've worked together on so many things.
We really have. And we want this to work. We want this, you know what I mean? We want this to work, what we do, the things that we make together and stuff like that. And so we like, I don't know, we're lucky. That's what it comes down to. We're lucky when it comes to that. So. Podcast is running long. I could chat with you all day.
It is. This is one of those ones where like, just talking about what we did in the last week gonna be good content for a podcast. Is it even gonna fill the hour that we strive for hitting? And here we are.
I know.
Like this is we killed two birds. We got a podcast out of just catching up, which is nice.
Exactly.
I felt it. I enjoyed the time. I really hope the viewers do too. I don't know exactly how they feel about like as much being in our lives and knowing about how our actual lives behind the cameras are, but it is kind of nice to share. And I thought it might be a good idea to just remind people as well that we are humans outside of this, and we all are kind of doing our normal everyday life. It's like we have something in common with everybody listening and watching is in that, like we still have a day-to-day task to do. We still have emotions that impact our decisions and things like that. And we're just normal people.
That's right. Like even like right now, like we're going to record another one after this. And then I got a jet and I'm going to go catch up with some friends from high school, one of which I haven't seen for about 17 plus years. And
it's awesome.
And it's crazy, man. Cause I wasn't, last time they did this, I was like, oh, I couldn't make it. And then this time they got to me like several months ahead of time and I committed. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be traveling during that time. Well, my daughter wasn't supposed to be playing. And so I almost said, yeah, guys, I'm not going to make it. But I'm like, I can't cancel. I can't do that. This is why I commit to almost nothing because I hate letting people down. So since I committed.
That could be a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So now I just want to, all I want to do is just watch the game on stream, but I'm going to find a way to probably do it during or watch it later or whatever. But, and my wife is in Cali right now. She's chaperoning a Disneyland trip. So she's living her best life.
Woo, Disneyland.
She loves Disneyland, dude. And so I'm just home with me in the zoo, and it's weird. It's foreign to me to be like have a house this quiet and just be this alone with my thoughts for this extended period. This is why I watched Men in Tights last night. Right? It's like, this is the very first free night I've actually had. I'm going to go ahead and watch Men in Tights, I guess. That's what we're going to do.
So well, they got that. So you can change your name in Discord now.
Everybody, yeah, I've been getting a lot of static for not having seen Men in Tights. So I'm going to watch it probably a couple times too.
Nice. Anyway, yeah, this one did run long. So hopefully you enjoyed all of it. Let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know. We do read the comments. Some of us read more than others.
You read more than me.
It's so funny. It's so funny. I read one last night. We got to end. But I read one last night that was like, Skizz, I know you're probably not reading this, but Impulse is. And then it was a bunch of advice or just like thoughts that could be helpful for you to read. And then I replied with just the emote, the eyeballs, like, and then dash Impulse because it was under the Imp And Skizz podcast. So it wasn't really.
Gotcha.
So you got to like sign it who's actually replying if you're in that account.
Very good. Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, you're right. I read it and Skizz didn't.
I did heart a handful. I think a handful of comments I hearted, and when I heart them underneath that profile, I'm like, no, I'm confident I'm speaking for both of us. Just fine.
Yeah. There's so many. Oh man, we love them. There's so many really long, and that's what just to me when we see the long comments, it's like
it's amazing.
It's just a reminder of like, wow, people really care.
Yeah,
like they really care to leave such an in-depth personal experience comment about how the podcast related to them. And it is tough to read through every word for word, every comment because of that. But like, I try to read as many as possible. And man, it is so, it's just warming my heart, like to see the reach this podcast is getting, the impact it's having on people's lives. I'm tearing up. Jeez. It's awesome. Like, and the podcast is growing. We're doing a good thing. Like
we're doing a good thing. And the thing is, I'm still like, we have some serious topics, but I want to have the joke ones like a lot. I like to relax. I really enjoyed what we did today. This was your idea. And last night I was sitting on my couch and I was about to go through the comments of the latest podcast. And I was like, you know what? I was sitting right here when I thought of this topic. I remember I was like, what was I watching? Something on TV. Somebody on TV was struggling to ask for help or something. I don't remember. And I remember watching being like, that's a topic. You know what I mean? And so I just let it marinate for like a few minutes and then I added it to the list. And I was like, I was just sitting here, had the idea, and now I'm going through just tremendous amount of well thought out, really deep, genuine comments about it. I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like this chapter of my life. I hope it goes on for some time.
Yeah, we've been doing it for over half a year now. So, and things are getting a little bit easier setup wise. And
oh my gosh. Okay, we got to go, but you got to tell everybody what just happened. We got to tell them what just happened.
All right. Jeez. Okay, really long podcast.
And then we're gonna let you go.
Oh man, well, let's cut this into 2 and we're done. So the last 2 podcasts before this one, it says we record 2 at a time now, just to kind of like save the setup time. Every week we do it every other week. Anyway, the cameras were not great. And it's like, okay, we've been doing this for half a year.
Yeah.
How are we not figured out how to dial in the cameras? Like I think you were out of focus. I was orange. Like,
well, we also learned, I mean, the camera made you a little bit orange, but we used to have our associated colors. You had yellow, I had blue.
These cool background
and that
lines.
just messed with everything. It didn't matter how much color correction I did or what tampering I did. Every time I tried to massage it, it got it worse. It was just,
Yeah. So like the camera technology was the piece that we were a little uncomfortable with and still trying to figure out to today. We're just going to hope that it's better this week. But we did a lot more measures to get the cameras. So we spent a long time on the camera setup today and the color and the lighting and the focus and the framing. And then it's like, all right, time to record. Here we go. And of course, audio is also a big part of the podcast, but it's one thing that we've never had to worry about. We have top of the line microphones. We have a top of the line Rode Podcaster Pro 2,
it's
like the newest one device that we plug into, and it takes care of everything.
It's never, ever had a problem.
Never had a problem. It's been great. And so we don't even, it's like an afterthought. It's just like, okay, we're plugged in. Let's hit record. we go to hit record and Skizz is like, why is the button blue? Isn't it usually it's green?
Yeah,
and I'm
green
like,
when you're not recording, red when you are.
Yeah,
what is
and
blue?
so I go to hit the button to record and it won't record. And we're like, what is going on?
Yep.
So suddenly our Rode podcaster device is the one problem of the day. And it took us we had to stop all the cameras. They were recording, stop all the cameras and figure it out. And it like, for whatever reason, was not reading the memory card inside of it. And we had to do a couple reboots. You looked up online how to do it and had to pull the card out, reboot it, then put the card in. And it's like magically it recognizes the card and we can get going. But it was like, one more thing before we
cost us more time that we weren't planning on.
Yeah, and we also didn't plan on doing an hour and 15-minute podcast, but here we are. So we're gonna stop now with this one, and
bye.
We'll get ready to record the next one. Anyway, thanks everybody for the continued support of the podcast. It is growing on all platforms, which is great to see. So continue to tell your friends and leave those awesome comments. We'll read as many as we can.
Yep.
And we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
See you.